Ella judíos a enfardelar, que mandan los reyes que paséis la mar. أيها الساقي إليك المشتكى قد دعوناك وإن لم تسمعي ونديم همت في غرته وشربت الراح من راحته كلما استيقظ من سكرته جذب الزق إليه واتكى وسقاني أربعا في أربعي أيها الساقي إليك المشتكى قد دعوناك وإن لم تسمعي غصن بان مال من حيث استوى مات من يحيه من فرط الجوى خفيق الأحشاء موهون القوى كلما فكر في البين بكى ويحه يبكي لمن لم يقع أيها الساقي إليك المشتكى قد دعوناك وإن لم تسمعي ما لعيني عشيت بالنظر أنكرت بعدك ضوء القمر وإذا ما شئت فاسمع خبري عشيت عيني من طول البكاء وبكى بعضي على بعض معي أيها الساقي إليك المشتكى قد دعوناك وإن لم تسمعي ليس لي صبر ولا لي جلد ما لقومي عدلوا واجتهدوا أنكروا شكوى مما أجدوا مثل حالي حقه أن تشتكى كمد اليأس وذل الطبع أيها الساقي إليك المشتكى قد دعوناك وإن لم تسمعي كبد حر ودمع يكف يعرف الذنب ولا يعترف أيها المعرض عما أصف قد نما حبك عندي وزكى
I can't believe it. I completely forgot to turn off the mute. This is ridiculous. Oh boy. I can't believe it. All right. You know what? I'm going to start from the beginning of the Parsha if I've done that. Okay. Sorry about that. Wow. That was a bad one. Okay. So we're having two problems today. I'm having a problem with the screen sharing, which I kind of worked out temporarily, and then I forgot to turn the mute off. Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay. It happens. All right. I'm going to start again at the beginning of the Parsha. It's good for me because I get to read through it one more time, which increases understanding, and everyone gets to hear it. So we're going to start. We're going Leviticus 6 through Leviticus 8. Again, we're going to be reading in the Hebrew. Please follow along either in Hebrew or in your native language or whatever other language you choose, whatever language you understand, or you could do both. You can have parallel. You can have the Hebrew next to the English or next to your chosen language. That's one great way to learn the Hebrew, or at least to learn some of the words of the Hebrew as you're going through it. Can everybody hear me now? Roberta, can you hear me now? If you can, please write a comment so I know. Well, I'm going to assume yes because I have the mute off now. I forgot to turn the mute off. Oh well, that's life, full of problems. So here we go. We're going to start in the beginning of Leviticus chapter 6, and I'm so sorry about that. It happens. So here we go. We're talking about the guilt offering. And so we're in chapter 6, verse 1. Again, I'm going to be reading it in the best biblical Hebrew accent that I can muster, and we'll take it from there. Okay. וידבר יהוה אל משה לאמור נפש כי תחתה הוא מעלה מעל ביהוה וכיחש יעמיתו בפיקדון אור בית סונת יד או בגזל או עשק את עמיתו או מצא אבידה וכיחש בה ונשבע על שקר על אחד מכל אשר יעשה אדם לחטוא בהנה והיה כי יחטא ויאשם והשיב את הגזלה אשר גזל או את העושק אשר עשק או את הפיקדון אשר הפקד אותו או את העבידה אשר מצא ומכל אשר ישבע עליו לשקר ושילם אותו בראש וחמישיתו יוסף עליו לאשר הוא לא יתננו ביום אשמתו. So this is if you steal from someone else, basically. Ma'al. Okay, so you've basically they usually translate this trespassed against God, against Yahweh. And again, I'm switching over from Yehovah to Yahweh more and more because I believe that the person who the Karaite who did the research on the name and came up with Yehovah is deeply flawed in his research. I've done a lot of exploration of my own lately, and I think the guy's actually kind of not even a serious scholar, but just kind of a showman more than anything else. Kind of pathetic, actually. At any rate, so I'm going to be saying, I may sometimes still say Yehovah because I'm still not 100% sure, but usually I'm going to be referring to Yud He Waw He as Yahweh based on some research and especially a series of videos that I've seen lately, which eventually I'll share with everybody. So at any rate, so how have you sinned against God or trespassed against God? That's the way Ma'al is usually translated. You've done it by, you've basically denied, well, in modern Hebrew, is deny, maybe lie or something like that. You've taken advantage of your fellow man, and this again is referring specifically to a fellow Israelite, I would think. Okay, because the entire Torah is basically, for the most part, deals with relationships between a person and his fellow Israelite. At any rate, that's up for discussion. Wapikadon or bitzumet yad or begazel. Okay, so these or ashak or ashaket amito. So we have different ways that you can steal from your neighbor. Pikadon. So we'll talk about this later, but this means a deposit, and it might be referring to something that you leave with somebody, okay, for them to take care of, or betzumet yad, or begazel. Gazel would be stealing, or ashak et amito, and this is kind of a general term. Maybe extortion, actually, they translated here. So there's different ways that you can extract money or take advantage of your fellow man. Here's another one. You found a lost object. So according to the Torah, if you find a lost object, we can come to this mitzvah yet. I don't think so. Was it in Exodus? I'm trying to remember now. It was in Exodus 21, 22. I don't think so. We haven't come to this mitzvah yet, but if you find a lost object, you're supposed to return it to the person who lost it. And if you don't, and you basically do not lie about it or deny it, so if you've done any of these things, okay, and then and then you swore, okay, if you took an oath that you know nothing about it, okay, I didn't steal anything, or because when you go before the courts, you're supposed to take, before the Hebrew courts, you're supposed to take an oath, okay, in the name of Yahweh, okay. So basically, what you've done is not only have you stolen, okay, but you've taken a false oath about it, okay. So your sin is kind of double here, okay. Okay, so if he's found out, or I guess if he admits it, comes to his senses, then what's supposed to happen here? So it says here, "Washiv et gzela asher gazal, or et oshek asher ashak, or et apikadon asher afkad ito, or et ha'avida asher matzah." So first of all, you return the object, you return the lost object, or if you stole something, you return it. If you held something, if you took care of something, then you return it, etc., etc. So what would be an example of, let's say, pikadon? That would be a friend says, or they always use Shimon and Levi, right? So Shimon says to Levi, "Okay, I'm going away for a couple weeks. Can you take care of my sheep?" Okay, and then Levi says, "Sure, no problem. I'll take care of your sheep." And then Shimon comes back 2 weeks later and says, "Where's my sheep?" Levi, maybe we should use Levi and Shimon. That's so boring. Let's use what would be? Let's use Dudu, and Dudu is David in modern Hebrew. It's a short for, no, maybe we won't use that one. We'll use I don't know. I can't think. I don't know. We'll just use Shimon. We'll just use Shimon and Levi. And Shimon comes back after 2 weeks and says, "Where's my sheep?" And Levi says, "Well, it's, unfortunately, it's sad, but your sheep ran away in the middle of the night, and we don't have them." And in the meantime, Levi had taken the sheep and invited all his friends over for a big feast. Okay, so that would be an example of a pikadon. Okay, of Shimon had entrusted the sheep with Levi, and Levi, took it for his own purposes and says, "I don't know anything about this." Right. So if he goes, and so now let's say Shimon wants to press the case in the courts. They would go to the court. The judge would ask Levi to swear that he knows absolutely nothing about this sheep. And if Levi does so, now he's basically taken a false oath, right? On top of stealing, he's also taken a false oath. So sin always leads to another sin. A lie always leads to another lie. That's the situation we have here. If he's found out, okay, or if he admits it, I guess, if he comes to terms with it, then he must return the object. And where is it here? And another fifth. So if the sheep was worth, let's say, $1,000, then he doesn't just return $1,000 to, in this case, he can't return the object because it's already been eaten, but he returns the value of the object, $1,000 plus another fifth. So it'd be $1,200. So basically, there's a 20% penalty for stealing, which is very reasonable, as a matter of fact. There are other places where the Torah mentions other amounts, such as double, such as 1/4, 1/5, but here we see a 20% penalty for stealing. And then he has to bring an offering, okay, because he's not only sinned against man, he sinned against God. How did he sin against God? He took a false oath, okay? So this is Allah ma'al, but Yahweh. He's basically trespassed against Yahweh. So now he brings a guilt offering. Okay, that's what we saw in Leviticus chapter 5. In the end of chapter 5, we saw other types of guilt offerings, or we saw maybe the first type of guilt offerings. The first type of guilt offering here in the end of Leviticus 25 was a tim'al. So it's the same language that's used here. Tim'ol ma'al, usually translated as trespassed against against God. But here it was a mistake. Okay, and what did he do? He did some mistake with the holy things of Yahweh. Anything that's dedicated to the temple becomes holy. It becomes basically God's property, right? It's consumed or taken by the Kohanim, who are the representatives of God, but it's in theory and in reality, it's God's property. Okay, so let's just see here. So basically, the situation here is he took some holy stuff, okay, that he didn't know was holy stuff, because if he did know it's holy stuff, it's a more serious sin. But he took some stuff that had been dedicated to the temple. So let's say, I don't know, let's just say an ephah flour, or let's say, the contents of a grain offering. He didn't realize that someone had dedicated to the temple, took it and made pizza out of it, and then figures out that this has been done, that he made a mistake. Oh my God, I took my neighbor's. I thought that my neighbor had left out the flour for anyone to take, and later I found out it was dedicated to the temple. Well, what does he have to do? It was a complete mistake, but he has to return the value of that amount plus another fifth. Again, here's the 20% penalty. Yosef alav v'natan oto lekohen v'akohen yichaper alav be'al asham v'nislach lo. And he also has to bring a guilt offering, an asham, okay? And the asham is going to be a ram. Thinking so far that's the only time we've seen a ram being brought. Let me just see here. Let me see one thing. Right. ואם נפש כי תחתר ועשתה אחד מכל מצוות יהוה אשר לא תעשנה ולא ידע והשם עשה עוונו והביא על תמים מן הצאן בערכך להשם אלא כהן וכיפר עליו הכהן על שכחתו אשר שכח והוא לא ידע ונסלח לו והאשם הוא אשם ליהוה. Okay, so again, here is a ram that's being brought. Okay, so that was that situation. And now we have the situation that we saw before. This is if you steal or otherwise misappropriate your neighbors, your fellow Israelites' money, then take a swear about it, take an oath about it, then you have to return it plus another fifth, 20% penalty, plus you have to bring a guilt offering. So that's basically ends the guilt offerings, okay, from the end of Leviticus 5, Leviticus 5:14 through here, Leviticus 6:6. Okay, let's close this out. So now we can go on to the burnt offering. Okay, so we've already spoken about the burnt offerings at the very beginning of Leviticus, but now we're going to find out some more information here. So this is Leviticus chapter 6, verse 8, and I'll read again in the Hebrew. וידבר יהוה אל משה לאמור, צאו את אהרון ואת בניו לאמור, זאת תורת העולה היא העולה על מוקדה על המזבח כל הלילה עד הבוקר ואש המזבח תוקד בה. So now we're talking about we're talking about burnt offerings. Wait one second here. Tzav et Aaron ובניו לאמור זאת תורת העולה הוא העולה על מוקדה על מזבח כל הלילה עד הבוקר ואש המזבח תוקד בה. So basically we're talking about making sure there's something burning on the altar all night long. Okay? ולבש הכהן מידו בד ומכנסי בד ילבש ויאכל בשרו וחיירים את הדשן אשר תאכל האש את העולה על המזבח ושמו אצל המזבח. Then you take the, not the dust, how do you say, the ashes of that which was burning all night long, and place it near the altar. So there's an ash pile near the altar. If I remember correctly, I think it was in last week's Parsha. It's going to be to the south, if I remember correctly. I don't know. I'll have to look again. We'll come across it again, okay? But the ash pile, I think, is to the south of the, let's see, this is west, so it's facing west, south. No, to the north. I think the ash pile is to the north of the altar, to the east of the altar, meaning basically in front of the altar. If you're looking towards the sanctuary, that's where the animals are killed. So different things are done on different sides of the altar. Okay. Samo etzel hamizbeach, verse 11. ופשט את בגדיו ולבש בגדים אחרים והוציא את הדשן אל מחוץ למחנה אל מקום טהור. So then these ashes are, so the Kohen changes his clothes, and then he takes the ashes from that which had been burning all night long. He in the morning would be the implication. He takes all of these ashes outside of the camp and deposits them or dumps them in a pure place. Okay. והאש על המזבח תוקד בו, לא תכבה, וביער עליה כהן עצים בבוקר וערך עליה העולה, והתיר עליה חלבי השלמים, אש תמיד תוקד על המזבח, לא תכבה. So it would seem here, we're going to have to explore a little bit later, that what this is saying is that there should always be, the fire on the altar should never go out. Okay, and we actually see that in the book of Maccabees, the Israelites in the book of Maccabees, the Israelites refer back, I think it's to the time of Nehemiah they're talking about, where they took fire when they needed to go into exile. It had to be before Nehemiah. I'm sorry, maybe it was in the time of Jeremiah. They took fire off of the altar and they stored it in a pit. And then there was a miracle. Was it in time? Now I have to remember correctly. Was it in the time of Nehemiah? I think they said, yeah, when Nehemiah came back, that he took it out of that pit and was able to burn the altar again. I may be a little bit wrong. I have to check back in the book of Maccabees. But basically, the point is that the Israelites were so concerned or so into the idea of keeping the fire burning at all times that even when they went into exile, they tried to store the fire somewhere. Whether that's a true story or maybe a little bit exaggerated, it is the book of Maccabees. After all, it's not prophecy. Is another story. At any rate, okay, let's go on. We are now in Leviticus chapter 6, verse 14. And we're going to read about the grain offering, wazot, and we already spoke about the grain offering in last week's parsha, but now we're going to find out. We're going to talk about other things regarding it. Okay, wazot Torah mincha, יקרב אותה בני אהרון לפני יהוה אל פני המזבח, וחירים ממנו יקומסו מסורת המנחה ומשמנה, ואת כל הלבונה אשר על המנחה, והקטיר המזבח הריח ניחוח. אז קראתה ליהוה, והנותרת ממנה יאכלו אהרון ובניו מצות תאכל במקום קדוש, חצר אוהל מועד יאכלוה, לא תאפה חמץ, חלקם נתתי אותה מאישי קודש קודשים היא כחטאת וכאשם. כל זכר בבני אהרון יאכלנה, חוק עולם לדורותיכם, מאישי יהוה, חור אשר ייגע בהם יקדש. And so we have this idea here of anything that touches it shall become holy. And we'll talk about this, we'll talk about this a little bit later. We'll look at this in much greater detail in this afternoon's study. Okay? Well, let's look at it for a second now. As a matter of fact, oh, I forgot I can't do the regular share. Yeah, we'll do it this afternoon. Well, let me do it very quickly. So this is Leviticus 6:18. Let me just look it up myself here. Just 1 second. Oops. Leviticus 6. 18. Numbering is a little bit different here. 1 second. Whoever touches his flesh shall become holy. A fence offering. The numbering is a little bit different here. 1 second. No, I think I'm looking at the wrong thing. 1 second. We are in Leviticus 6. What? 6:14. It should be Leviticus 6:18, but the numbering in the version I have here is a little bit different. Just one more time. Yeah, here it is. The numbering here is different. Here it's 11. Okay, this is because of whatever. Some different versions have different numberings. At any rate, every male among your sons of Aaron shall eat it, a perpetual portion for your generations from the fire offerings of the Lord. Whatever touches them shall become holy. Okay, so let's just take a look at this for 1 second. I'm reading now the Robert Alter, as I often refer to, right? One of the commentaries that I refer to. And he says, whatever touches them shall become holy. It is also possible to construe the sentence as Baruch Levine does to mean, whoever touches them shall be holy, i.e., no person is allowed to touch the fat cakes made from the grain offerings who is not holy or member of the priestly caste. I actually disagree with this opinion. Jacob Milgram, however, makes a persuasive case on philological, and other grounds that the references to objects rather to persons. That's what I think as well. What is involved then is an idea some scholars have described as a contagion of holiness, symmetrical with the more common idea of a contagion of impurity. Exactly what I think as well. Objects that come in contact with consecrated substances, such as the grain offering themselves, become consecrated and can no longer be used for profane purposes. So that's exactly what I think as well, right? So here it says, where were we? 18. Kol zachar b'bnei Aaron yochlena. So here it says anything, okay, that touches them, touches what? We're talking about the grain offerings that have been brought, that have been dedicated to the temple. So anything that touches them becomes holy. So there are two possible interpretations. One is that anyone who touches them should be holy. In other words, only the Kohanim should touch the grain offerings. Okay. So here, in that case, we would translate Kol Asher Yiga Bahem. And again, we're looking at the end of verse 18, these last 5 words of verse 18. So we could say anyone that touches them, touches what? The grain offerings that have been brought to the temple, should be holy. In other words, only the Kohanim should touch the grain offerings because they're holy, right? They're the ones who are purified and anointed and sanctified to God to carry out the offerings. So that would be one interpretation. Another interpretation would be that anything that touches these grain offerings becomes holy, and this is the interpretation that I believe is correct. Okay, so let's say you have a grain offering, okay, and it's been dedicated to the temple. and then you're at the temple, or maybe even before it comes to the temple, but it's already been dedicated. But let's say you're at the temple, okay, and here's this grain offering. You're in the courtyard there, and you're eating a chicken sandwich, okay? And by mistake, you walk over to the grain offering and say, "Wow, what a lovely grain offering!" And you reach out to touch the grain offering, and your chicken sandwich touches the grain offering, okay? Well, then your chicken sandwich now is a holy chicken sandwich, according to this idea. Okay, it's no longer profane. It's no longer chol. It's now kadosh. It's now holy, and it can now no longer be consumed by you. It would have to be consumed by the Kohanim, right? It basically becomes dedicated to the temple, right? And so there's this idea of impurity spreading. 1 second, please. This idea of impurity spreading, which we're going to see later on in the book of Leviticus, and as Robert Alter, I think, correctly points out, quoting Jacob Milgram, he says that this is kind of a quote-unquote contagion of holiness. Okay, that if something is holy, then anything that touches it also becomes holy. If something is dedicated to the temple, then anything that touches it also becomes dedicated to the temple. And I think that is the correct interpretation of these verses here. Okay, so that being said, let's move on. Verse 19, وَيِدَبَرْ Yahweh אל משה לאמור זה קורבן אהרון ובניו אשר יקריב ליהוה ביום היא משך אותו עשירית האיפה סולת מנחה תמיד מחציתה בבוקר ומחציתה בערב על מחמת בשמן תעשה מורבכת תביאנה תופיני מנחת פיתים תקריב ריח ניחוח ליהוה והכהן המשיח תקטעו לבניו יעשה אותה חוק עולם ליהוה כליל תקטר וכל מנחת כהן כליל תהיה לא תאכל. Okay, so this is the anointing of the Kohanim. All right, we're now in Leviticus 6:24. וידבר יחווה אל משה לאמור, דבר אל אהרון ואל בניו לאמור, זאת תורת החטאת במקום אשר תשחט העולה, תשחט החטאת לפני יחווה, חודש חודשים היא. הכהן המחטא אותה יאכלנה במקום קדוש תאכל, חצר אוהל מועד. כל אשר ייגע בבשרה Dash. Same thing here. Anything that touches the flesh of, we're now talking about the sin offering. Okay, so we're giving more details. So basically, what are we saying here? Okay. So the sin offering is to be slaughtered in the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered. Okay, and for that we would have to go back to, I believe it's Leviticus 1. It's mentioned. And if I remember correctly, let's bring it up for a second. That is, again, is going to be on the north side of the altar, but let me just see. קריב בני אהרון הכהנים את הדם וזרקו את הדם. One second here. Yeah, מזבח צפונה. Okay, ואם מן הצאן קורבנו מן הכבשים או מן העזים לעולה זכר תמים יקריבנה ושחט אותו על ירך המזבח צפונה. So here we're talking about the flock, so we're talking about a sheep or a goat has to be slaughtered on the north side of the altar. Let's say the same thing here. Maybe I just missed it. One second here. בני אהרון הכהנים את הדם וזרקו סביב אשר פתח אוהל מועד והפשיט את העולה. So it doesn't mention, I can't see, ימינה off. So here it doesn't mention. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, we're not going to get into it now. But here, in the case of the tzon, the flock, it's slaughtered on the north side of the altar, specifically. Now, it doesn't mention it for the other types specifically, but we'll have to explore that a little bit later. Okay, at any rate, we're going back now to. So we are at the. Where were we? One second. One second. What is going on here? Where is that? Shemo אצל המזבח, פשט את בגדיו ולבש בגדים, הוציא grain offering. Sin offering, right? That's where we were. Okay, so I'm going to start again in Leviticus 6, chapter 6, verse 24. וידבר יחווה אל משה לאמור, דבר אל אהרון ואל בניו לאמור, זאת תורת החטאת במקום אשר תשחט העולה, תשחט החטאת לפני יחווה, קודש קודשים היא. הכהן המחטא אותה יאכלנה במקום קודש תאכל חצר אוהל מועד. So this is a sin offering. It has to be eaten in the Chatzar Ohel Moed, in the courtyard of the tent of meeting, right? That's the courtyard surrounding the tent of meeting. The tent of meeting is a sanctuary. Kol asher yiga bibasra yikdash. Okay, so anything that touches its flesh also becomes holy. So it's the same idea here, right? If I have a chicken sandwich and it touches the sacrifice, the sin sacrifice, then my chicken sandwich is now a holy chicken sandwich. Okay. Asher yizeh midama al habered, asher yizeh alea tichabes makom kadosh. So, and if blood from the sacrifice gets on a garment, then that garment must also be washed in a holy place. The blood also of the sacrifice is holy. When we were speaking earlier about the grain offering, obviously there was no idea of blood from the grain offering being sprinkled, but here we're speaking about the meat offering. Okay. Okay. So these are vessels that the sin offering is cooked in. Okay, so if it's a kli charesh, if it's a clay vessel, then it has to be broken. Okay, that clay vessel cannot be used again. And if it's made of nechoshet, out of bronze, then it's basically morak. You should translate, I think, is scoured and then washed with water. כל זכר בכהנים יאכל אותה קודש קודשים היא. וכל החטאת אשר יובא מדמה אל אוהל מועד, כפר בקודש לא תאכל באש תשרף. Okay. Leviticus 7. וזאת תורת האשם קודש קודשים היא. So now we're talking about the guilt offering. במקום אשר ישחטו את העולה, ישחטו את האשם, ואת דמו יזרוק על המזבח סביב. ואת כל חלבו יקריב ממנו את העלייה ואת החלב המכסה את הקרב. Excuse me for 1 second. Cat problems. What's going on? Excuse me, be right back. Torah study. They're both here and they're both hungry, so come feed them, please. Come on, guys, out. Out. Sufi. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. We have two cats, Suf and Lavi and Suf, and they make trouble sometimes. So, all right. Where were we? Right, verse 4. وَإِتْ شْتَى كْلَيَوْت وَإِتْ حَلَب أَشَرْ عَلَيْهِمْ أَشَرْ الْحَكْسَلِيم وَإِتْ يُتَرَتْ. So these are the different fats, the different parts of the animal that is supposed to be removed. وَإِتْ يُتَرَتْ عَلَى كَبَيْد الْكْلَيَوْت يَسِرِينَ وَعْتِيد אותם הכהן המזבח אישה ליהוה אשם הוא. כל זכר בכהנים יאכלנה במקום קודש יאכל קודש קודשים הוא, כי חטאת כי אשם תורת אחד להם הכהן אשר יכפר בו לא יהיה. והכהן המקריב את עולת איש אור העולה אשר הקריב לכהן לא יהיה. וכל מנחה אשר תאפה בתנור, וכל נעשה במרחשת ועל מחבת לכהן המקריב אותה לא תהיה. וכל מנחה בלולה בשמן וחרבה כל בני אהרון תהיה איש כאחיו. Okay, so it's speaking again what's to be happening in this case to the guilt offerings. Okay, the peace offerings. This is very technical stuff. And really, I found in the past the only way to kind of make sense of it is to make lists and charts and stuff like that. Because if you remember, where is this supposed to be slaughtered? What happens with this? What happens with that? But we're going to go through it. It's this week's Parsha, and we'll try to find out and understand as much of it as we can. So we are now in Leviticus 7. Wazot Torat Zevach Shlamim Asher Yakriv Yahweh. Verse 12. Im al Todah Yakrivenu Wahikriv. Wait a second. One second. Right. Okay. So verse 11. So we're in Leviticus 7:11. Zot Torat Zevach Hashlamim Asher Yakriv LeYahweh. Im al Todah Yakrivenu. Akriv al Zevach HaTodah Halot Matzot Blulot Bashemen ורקקי מצות משוחים בשמן וסולת מורבכת חלות בלולות בשמן על חלות לחם חמץ יקריב קורבנו הזבח תודה שלמה ויקריב ממנו אחד מקור קורבן תרומה ליהוה לכהן הזורק את דם השלמים לא יהיה. בשר זבח תודה שלמה, verse 15, ביום קורבנו יאכל לא יניח ממנו עד בוקר. ואם נדר או נדבה זבח קורבנו, ביום הקריבו את זבחו יאכל, ממחרת וחנותר ממנה יאכל, וחנותר מבשר הזבח ביום השלישי באש ישרף. ואם האכול יאכל מבשר זבח שלמה ביום השלישי לא ירצה, מקריב אותו לא יחשב לו, פיגול יהיה, והנפש האוכלת ממנו עונה תישא. והבשר אשר ייגע בכל טמא לא יאכל, באש ישרף. והבשר כל טהור יאכל בשר. והנפש אשר תאכל בשר מזבח השלמים אשר ליהוה וטומאתו עליו, ונכרתה הנפש ההיא מעמך. ונפש כי תיגע בכל טמא בטומאת אדם או בהמה טמאה, או בכל שקץ טמא, ואוכל מבשר זבח השלמים אשר ליהוה, ונכרתה הנפש ההיא מעמך. Excuse me for 1 second. Come here. Wait outside. Go. Okay. Verse 22, so we're in Leviticus 7:22. וידבר יהוה אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל לאמור, כל חלב, שור וחסב ועז לא תאכלו. So these are the fats that are supposed to be burnt on the altar. וחלב נבלה וחלב טרפה יעשה לכל מלאכה ואכול לא תאכלוהו. So now we're talking about the chelev of a trefa, of a nivela or a trefa, right? So these are animals that died on their own, or which were killed by other animals. Nivela is an animal that died on its own. A trefa is an animal that was prey, that was killed by another animal. Okay. So here it says, and this is interesting because it relates to something we said in last week's parsha. וחלב נבלה וחלב טרפה יעשה לכל מלאכה ואוכל לא תאכלוהו. Okay, so you're allowed to take these various animal parts, right? So we're not talking about sacrifice here. You're allowed to take these various animal parts, or these fats, these animal fats of a animal that died on its own or was killed, and you're allowed to do things with them. I don't know what you do with the fat of an animal. Maybe you use it to oil your your car or something like that. So you're allowed to do something like that. But you're not allowed to eat it. Okay. So this would imply, once again, we had a discussion last week about fats that were on the altar, and is it just the fats of the sacrifices that are forbidden to be eaten, or is it all fats? And here it would imply all fats, right? Because these certainly are not brought on the altar. And the vela and the trefa are not brought on the altar. Okay. They would for sure not be brought on the altar, and nonetheless, you're not allowed to consume the fats. Okay, so it wouldn't mention the fats explicitly unless the idea was for all animals, you're not allowed to consume the fats. If that doesn't make sense, we'll talk about it more later. At any rate, verse 25, Ki kol ochel halev min habehema asher yakriv mimena ishe liYahweh unichrata הנפש האוכלת מעמها. Verse 26, כל דם לא תאכלו בכל מושבותיכם לעוף ולבהמה. כל נפש אשר תאכל כל דם ונכרתה הנפש ההיא מעמها. Verse 28, וידבר יהוה אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל לאמור, המקריב את זבח שלמיו ליהוה, יביא את קורבנו ליהוה מזבח שלמיו. ידיו תביאנה את אישי יהוה, את החלב אשר החזה יביאנו, את החזה להניף אותו תנופה לפני יהוה. ויתיר הכהן את החלב המזבחך, והיה החזה לארון ובניו. ואת שוק הימין תיתנו תרומה לכהן מזבחי שלמים, המקריב את דם השלמים ואת החלב לבני אהרון לא תהיה שוק הימים למנה, כי את חזה התנופה ואת שוק התרומה לקחתי מאת בני ישראל מזבחי שלמיהם ואתן אותם לארון הכהן ולבניו לחוק עולם מאת בני ישראל. אוקיי. זאת משחת אהרון ומשחת בניו מאישי יחווה ביום הקריב אותם לכהן ליחווה, שציווה יחווה לתת להם ביום משכו אותם מאת בני ישראל חוקת עולם לדורותם. זאת, verse 37, so in Leviticus 7:37. זאת התורה לעולה, למנחה ולחטאת, לעשם ולמילואים ולזבח השלמים, שציווה יחווה את משה בהר סיני ביום צאותו את בני ישראל להקריב את קורבניהם ליחווה במדבר סיני. Okay, very technical stuff, but we'll try to pick it apart a little bit later. I want to get through the parsha. God, is that technical stuff. Okay, so here we have the consecration of Aaron and his sons. We're in Leviticus chapter 8, verse 1. וידבר יחווה אל משה לאמור, קח את אהרון ואת בניו איתו ואת הבגדים ואת שמן המשחה ואת פר החטאת ואת שני העלים ואת סל המסות ואת כל העדה הקהל אל פתח אוהל מועד. So this is the actual consecration. So we've spoken about all of this stuff. We've spoken about what should happen in terms of, well, first back in the book of Exodus, we spoke about how the tabernacle should be built, and then we spoke about it being built. Now we've spoken about the sacrifices, all kinds of details of the sacrifices, and really you have to be, you almost have to dedicate your entire life to become an expert in this kind of stuff. That's why the Kohanim and the Levites, they were supposed to be the experts in all of the details of the sacrifices. Okay, it's a huge topic, and very complicated, very technical. Okay, but so far we haven't spoken about the actual dedication. So now the dedication is going to occur of Aaron and his sons. Okay, so all of the congregation assembles at the Ohel Moed. Again, the Ohel Moed is the tent that's inside the courtyard. Okay, it's the place wherein is the holy part, and then the Holy of Holies. Right, so that's the Ohel Moed. Ya'as Moshe kasher tziwah Yahweh oto watikahel ha'edah el petach Ohel Moed. So all of the congregation, well, translate Edah as congregation, but I've, as I mentioned in the past, tried to do better translations that stick closer to the Hebrew. So I'm calling that the witnessing community. So the entire witnessing community, kind of like the real Jehovah's Witnesses, congregated to the opening of the tent of meeting. ויאמר משה אל העדה, זה הדבר אשר ציווה יהוה לעשות. This is what Yehovah has commanded. ויקרב משה את אהרון ואת בניו וירחץ אותם במים. So Moshe brings forth Aaron and his sons and allow את הכתונת. ויתן עליו את האפוד ויחגור אותו בחשב האפוד ויעפד לו בו. So these are all the various priestly garments that we've spoken about in Exodus, in the last part of Exodus, right? So the avnet is the sash. Well, first we have the ketonet. The ketonet is the undergarment, the long undergarment that reaches down to the feet. The avnet is the sash. So we're talking the avnet, and then the ma'il is kind of the short coat that goes over that. And then we have the ephod. The ephod is kind of the vest to which the Urim and Tumim, or the Choshen HaMishpat, is going to be attached. ויחגור אותו בחשב האפוד. And yafod lo bo, and so the So the ephod is placed on him. We asem alav et choshen. So there's the choshen, that's the breastplate, right? Choshen mishpat, the breastplate of judgment. We'ten el choshen et ha'urim wa et tumim. And the on the breastplate are placed the urim and the tumim, and we don't really know exactly what they are. Some people would say that these are the stones, the 12 stones that are in the breastplate. There are other examples of, or there are other thoughts about what the Urim and the Tumim are. And I remember correctly, this is the first time that the Urim and the Tumim are mentioned. Let me just check. It might have been mentioned once before. Let me just see. No, in Exodus, at the Urim in Exodus 28:30. So it says in Exodus 28:30, ונתתי אל חושן המשפט את האורים ואת התומים, והיו על לב אהרון בבואו לפני יהוה, ונשא אהרון את משפט בני ישראל על ליבו לפני יהוה תמיד. So here it says, ונתתי אל חושן המשפט את האורים והתומים. So I've placed, or you shall place, Wanatata, and you shall place on the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Tumim, right? So that would seem to maybe imply those are those 12 stones, 12 rows of stones. Vayu alev Aaron, and it shall be on the heart of Aaron. So this Urim and Tumim, whatever it is, shall be on the heart of Aaron. Okay, bivo'o lifnei Yahweh, when he comes in before God. When asa Aaron et mishpat bnei Israel. Alibo, and he shall carry the judgment of Israel on his heart, lifnei Yahweh tamid, before Yahweh always. Okay, so the Urim and the Tumim have been mentioned before. That was in Exodus 28:30. Nobody knows exactly what they are. They might be the 12 stones. They might be something else. Okay, at any rate, here it's mentioned again. Vesem et mitznefet. The mitznefet is the turban. Al rosho. Vesem al mitznefet el mul hanau. Et tzitz hazahav. The tzitz is the kind of gold band that goes around, which is kadosh le Yahweh, holy to Yahweh. Nezer hakodesh kasher tziwa Yahweh et Moshe. So basically, here Moshe is dressing Aharon. Aharon is the Kohen Gadol. He's the head honcho, the top kahuna. And Moshe is dressing him. Vayikach Moshe et shemen hamishcha, vayimshach et hamishkan, va'et asher bo vayikdash otam. So now Moshe pours the anointing oil pretty much over everything. Okay, so the Mishkan is basically another reference to the Ohel Moed. Wayaz mimenu ala mizbeach sheva pa'amim, and he also sprinkled this anointing oil seven times on the sacrifice, the altar of sacrifice. Mishach et hamizbeach wa'et kol kelau wa'et hakior wa'et kano lekadsham, and then basically poured anointing oil all over the altar and all over the various vessels that are associated with the altar. Verse 12, Wayitzok mishemen hamishcha al rosh Aharon. So he poured now the anointing oil on Aaron's head, and anointed him to sanctify him. Right. So this is the way priests, kings, etc., are installed. They are anointed with anointing oil. ויקרב משה את בני אהרון וילבישם כותנות ויחקור אותם אבנית ויחבוש להם מגבעות כאשר ציווה יהוה את משה. And then the sons of Aaron are also dressed. Okay, they're given not the full Kohen Gadol garment, but they're given a robe and a sash and migbaot, which is different from the mitznefet. The mitznefet is like a turban. The migbaot are kind of like hats. Okay. So what do we have now? Yagesh et par hachatat v'smoch Aaron ubanao et yadehem al rosh par hachatat. So now they're going to bring a sin offering, וישחט ויקח משה את הדם ויתן על קרנות המזבח סביב באצבעו ויחטא את המזבח ואת הדם יצק על יסוד המזבח ויקדשהו לכפר עליו. So this is now a sin offering is being brought. One second here. Right. So Aaron and his sons, they place their hands on the sin offering, right? So this is now to atone for them for anything that they might have done or perhaps might do with regards to carrying out the various laws and ceremonies incorrectly, right? וישחט ייקח משה את הדם ויתן על קרנות המזבח סביב באצבעו ויחטאו את המזבח ואת הדם יצק אל יסוד המזבח ויקדשהו לכפר עליו. ויקח את כל החלב אשר על הקרב ואת יותרת הכבד ואת שתי הכליות ואת בהן ויתר משה המזבחה ואת הפר ואת עורו ואת בשרו ואת פרשו שרף באש מחוץ למחנה כאשר ציווה יהוה את משה. Okay. Verse 18. ויקרב את אל העולה ויסמכו אהרון בניו את ידיהם על ראש האל האחת משה אדם לנידחו ויתר משה את הראש חיים הקרב ויקח משה מדמו ויתן על תנוך אוזן אהרון הימנית ועל בוהן ידו הימנית ועל בוהן רגלו הימנית ויקרב את בני אהרון ויתן משה מן הדם על תנוך אוזנם הימנית ועל בוהן ידם הימנית ועל בוהן רגלם הימנית ויזרוק משה את הדם על המזבח סביב ויקח את החלב ואת העלייה ואת כל החלב אשר על הקרב ואת יותרת הכבד ואת שתי הכליות ואת הלבהם ואת שוק הימין ומשל המצות אשר לפני יהוה לקח חלת מצה אחת וחלת לחם שמן אחת ורקיקי אחד וישם על החלבים ועל שוק הימין ויתן את הכל על כפי אהרון ועל כפי בניו וינף אותם תנופה לפני יהוה. Verse 28. So we're in Leviticus 8:28. ויקח משה אותם מעל כפיהם ויתר המזבחה על העולה מילואים הם לריח ניחוח אישר הוא ליהוה. ויקח משה את החזה ויניפהו תנופה לפני יהוה מעל המילואים למשה היה למנה כאשר ציווה יהוה את משה. ויקח משה משמן המשחה ומן הדם אשר על המזבח ויעז על אהרון על בגדיו ועל בניו ועל בגדי בניו איתו ויקדש את אהרון את בגדיו ואת בניו ואת בגדי בניו איתו. ויאמר משה אל אהרון ואל בניו בשלו את הבשר פתח אוהל מועד ושם ושם תאכלו אותו, ואת הלחם אשר בסל המילואים כאשר ציוויתי לאמור אהרון ובניו יאכלוהו, והנותר בבשר ובא לכם באש תשרפו, ומפתח אוהל מועד לא תצאו 7 ימים עד יום מראות ימי מילואיכם, כי 7 ימים ימלא את ידיכם. כאשר עשה ביום הזה ציווה יהוה לעשות לכפר עליהם, ופתח אוהל מועד תשבו יומם ולילה 7 ימים, שמרתם את משמרת יהוה ולא תמותו, כי כן צוויתי, ויעש אהרון ובניו את כל הדברים אשר ציווה יהוה ביד משה. Okay, that is the end of the Parsha, chapter 6, 7, and 8. And do we have any questions or do we have any comments? If not, I think what we'll do is we'll take a very quick break. And then maybe we'll try to start digging in with chapter 6, or maybe I should just end it for today because it's very technical. No, we'll take a break. I'm going to take a break for about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll try to do a little bit of analysis. Okay, so I'm going to put on some music for 5 minutes or so, and we'll be right back.
أيها الساقي إليك المشتكى قد دعوناك وإن لم تسمعي ونديم همت في غرته وشربت الراح من راحته كلما استيقظ من سكرته جذب الزق إليه واتكى وسقاني 4 في 40 أيها الساقي إليك المشتكى قد دعوناك وإن لم تسمعي غصن بال مال من حيث استوى مات من يحياه من فرط الجوى خفيق الأحشاء موهون القوى كلما فكر في البين بكى ويحه يبكي لمن لم يقع أيها الساقي إليك المشتكى قد دعوناك وإن لم تسمعي ما لعيني عشيت بالنظر أنكرت بعدك ضوء القمر وإذا ما شئت فاسمع خبري عشيت عيني من طول البكاء وبكى بعضي على بعض معي أيها الساقي إليك المشتكى
No sound right now. Okay, we're back. Okay. I'm not going to make the same mistake again. Okay, so we were talking about, and I have to reshare. Hold on a second. So stop screen, share screen, Chrome tab. Okay, there we go. All right, that should do it now. Now the sound should be better. I'm sorry, I'm having some problems with the sharing. I can't share I can't share everything. I can only share one tab at a time. And I'll have that fixed by this afternoon, as I mentioned now. But there should be sound now. And we're talking about and so what they were Leviticus and let's get the, so I like to use the Robert Alter translation as any place to start. Okay. Oh, geez, all the numbering is off here, so it's gonna be a pain in the neck. All right, I gotta find this now. 1 second, please. Sensing is the teaching of the burnt offering, so they're calling that Leviticus 6:1. Okay, I see. Wow, so it's off by about 8 verses. So this is actually going to be here. So I'm going to go back to chapter 5 here. 1 second here. One more second, I'm sorry. So here we are. Okay. Okay, so we have here, so the translation, which I can't show on the screen, unfortunately, as I said, so this is the Robert Alter translation. So he said, should a person offend? So tehate, often translated as sin, is translated by Robert Alter as offend. By the Shokin Bible, Everett Fox, which you can find online for free. Just Google Shokin Bible. I'll just copy it and paste it. So if you want a good translation, it's in the chat right now. Okay, the Shokin Bible. There's not commentary on it, at least not in the version I have, but it's a good translation. It's a good, solid translation. So this is again is going to be Leviticus 5:21. Let's get this translation, Leviticus 5:21, from the Shokin Bible. Leviticus 5:21. Yeah, so a person who sins, breaking faith is how Everett Fox translates it. So he goes with the more traditional translation of techate. Robert Alter doesn't like this idea of sin, right? He usually thinks things out very carefully. So he says offend, and I like that as well, right? So techate is kind of a general, it's kind of a general term for doing something wrong, right? So sin is kind of, right? Sin has religious overtones, whereas offend has more like general overtones of doing something wrong. And I like that. I think I'm going to go with that one. But let's see if Robert Alter says anything about that. No, he doesn't speak about it there, but I'm sure he does elsewhere. Okay. Should a person offend and then he translates? I'm sorry. Then it's where ma'ala. Translated as makes a trespass against, but Yahweh makes a trespass against Yahweh. But Robert Alter translates it as betray the Lord's trust. So I like that translation also. Usually I like Robert Alter's translations, not always. We can take a look at the Ibn Ezra and see what he has to say. So the Ibn Ezra I've started using recently, and his translations or his comments are pretty good, I have to say, unlike Rashi, who's just, as I always call him, the worst Torah commentator ever in the history of Torah commentators. So let's go for Ibn Ezra. And we're going to have to go to Leviticus 5. Unfortunately, you can't see this on the screen. 5:21. Okay, so Ibn Ezra says, Uma'ala ma'al ba Hashem, ba Yahweh, she'avar al mitzvot lo ta'aseh, midvar shehu beno uben adam. Okay, so Ibn Ezra gives a very specific idea of what it means, ma'ala ma'al. Okay, that in this case, he's saying that it's transgressing a negative mitzvah. Okay, midvar she'u beno uben adam. So translating or transgressing one of the negative mitzvahs, that one of the negative commandments regarding a man and his fellow man. Okay. Okay. Well, that's his interpretation of that. But I think ma'ala ma'al we also saw previously. We saw it in the end of last week's parsha regarding also taking a excuse me, also regarding misappropriating holy things. Okay, at any rate, let's look a bit more at, I could do it this way, so maybe you can see. Let's look a little bit more at the underlying, oops, root ma'al. So Strong's Concordance says unfaithful, treacherous act. Let's look at the BDB. More treacherous act. And we have all kinds of examples of where it shows up. And let's just see here. Maybe we can get in a more kind of colloquial context to get an idea of what it means. Okay. So here, Leviticus 26:40. Says, وَهِدْ وَدُوا al et avonam wa et avon bimla asher ma'alu bi ve'af asher alhu qa'imin in baqari. So this is the the blessing and the curse. Okay, so here we have a kind of general. So now we have it in general and in a context of what that's right. With the and that which they did and that which they went against me, or keri means like intentionally. Okay. So here we have in the general sense, if we can get it from the context, ma'alubi. So the trespass which they trespassed against me, right? How does Robert Alter translate it again? He translates it as a betrayal. Okay, betray the Lord's trust. So their betrayal, their trespass. Okay. So just trying to see if there's anything else. Let's look at this. Ma'al. to act unfaithfully, treacherously. Look, it's disturbs me if you sit right there, okay? It's like, well, then do it outside, please, okay? Look, please, okay? I know, but just do it outside, all right? Because I'm trying to do the study here. Thanks. Okay, ma'al. All right, so we have a lot of examples. Let's take Proverbs 16:10. So Proverbs 16:10 says, and again, we're trying to get a little better idea of what is this word ma'al. Qasam al siftei melech b'mishpat lo yim'al piv. So magic or divination, they translate it here, al siftei melech, on the lips of the king, b'mishpat, in judgment, lo yim'al piv, shall not transgress, shall not betray his mouth. That's a tough one. I'm not even sure what that means. Let's take another one. Proverbs is sometimes a little bit hard to decipher. Let's look at Joshua 22:20. This is the story of Achan. And Halo Achan bin Zerach ma'al ba'cherem. So this is very specifically, right? This is when he stole the spoils. He wasn't supposed to take the spoils for himself. Ma'al ba'cherem al kol adat Israel היה קצף והוא איש אחד לא גבה בעוונו. Okay. So this is the story of Achan ben Zerach, who he was killed in the end, but he misappropriated the spoils of war that had been captured by Joshua and the Israelite army. Okay, so here the word ma'al is used in that sense of misappropriation. Okay. Let's go back and let's see if we can find another example. How about Joshua 7:1? I think this is going to be the story of Achan here. Okay, 7:1. Oh, geez, why am I getting this version? It's more without the. Do I just get it in the regular Hebrew? There we go. Joshua 7:1. Okay, so here we have the وَيِمْعَلُوا بْنَي إِسْرَائِيل مَعَال بَحَرٍ وَيِكَخْ أَخَان بن كرمي بن زبدي بن زرح למטה יהודה מן החרם ויחר אף יהוה בבני ישראל. So the ימעלו בני ישראל מעל בחרם, so the Israelites, the children of Israel, made a transgression or transgressed a transgression or betrayed. Again, how do they usually translate this? They translate it as a trespass, right? They trespassed a trespass. Harem is the stuff that was set aside, okay, from the bounty of war. Yikach Achan ben Karmi. So here's this person, Achan ben Karmi ben Zavdi ben Zerach lemate Yehuda, from the tribe of Yehuda. Min Acharem wayichar af Yahweh b'vnei Israel. So he took a bunch of the spoils. And he hid it basically in his tent, right? He was going to take some of the spoils for himself, and these spoils of war were supposed to go to were supposed to be dedicated to Yahweh. Let me just see here. Let me just see something. בית אבן מקדם לבית אל ויאמר להם לאמור עלו ורגלו את הארץ ויעלו האנשים וירגלו את. Okay, so this is now the attack of Ai. Okay, and then we're going to get back to, so this, it just mentions it here, and then we'll get back to the story later, what happens to Achan. So, okay, so that's kind of misappropriation, right? So ma'al there has the context of misappropriation. Let's go back again. Maybe we'll take one more. In Leviticus 26, where we saw in the verses regarding the curse and the blessing, so there it had a more general sense of just betrayal. Okay. Okay. Let's see what else we have. How about we'll choose one more. Numbers 5:27. Oh boy, I really don't like this version. Hebrew. Then 5:27. Okay. וישקע את המים והייתה אם נטמעה ותמעול מעל באישה. Okay, so this is an interesting one. וישעבו בה המים מערערים למרים וצבתה בטנה ונפלה ירחה והייתה האישה לעלה בקרב המה. So this is a situation where a man accuses his wife or believes that his wife has betrayed him, has basically had sex with another person. Okay, and so you have the test of drinking the bitter waters. Okay, hamayim hami'ararim lemarim, the cursed bitter waters. Okay, so what we have here, wahishkat hamayim. So all right, let's get a little bit more context. Open up all of verse 5. Well, it starts back in 11. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but let's start in verse 23. Okay, so there's a curse that's written down, okay, and then it's put in bitter waters. Wahishka et ha'isha, and then these bitter waters, where the curse has been dissolved, are fed or given to the woman who's being accused of adultery. So then she's fed the bitter waters. She's made to drink the bitter waters. Hami'ararim. Aranim is that curse. Ubau bahamayim, and the water goes into her. Hami'ararim limarim. So the cursed or the cursing bitter waters, well, the cursing bitter waters go into her. ולקח הכהן מיד האישה את מנחת ההקנאות. So then there's a sacrifice that's brought by the woman. והניף את המנחה לפני יהוה והקריב אותה אל המזבח. So sacrifice is brought, verse 26, וקמץ הכהן מן המנחה אל אזכרתה והתיר המזבח ואחר ישקט אישה את המים. Okay, so now she drinks the water. Verse 27, וישקע את המים והייתה אם נטמעה. So she drinks the water, and if she becomes impure, literally, or she becomes affected by the water, one could say here, ותמעול מעל באישה. And she had trespassed. So here we have tim'ol ma'al be'isha. She had trespassed against her husband, or she had betrayed a betrayal against her husband. Then when the water lemarim, when the bitter cursing waters come into her, then her belly shall swell up. When a fla yerecha, and her thighs will fall off or rot, I guess you could say. And this woman shall be as a curse or an oath, a remembrance, you could say. And if she is not dirty in a sense, or not impure of these sins, okay? If she's not impure, in other words, if this, well, it could actually be referring to the impurity that's that comes when one has sexual relations. One becomes ritually impure. But at any rate, it's neither here nor there. But if the woman is not guilty, basically, if she's not become dirty from the sin, and she's pure, then she is cleansed. And this is usually understood of, and then she gives birth, or she conceives. Okay, so the idea here is we have this phrase in Numbers 5:27. Watimol ma'al ba'isha, right? So this is not speaking about misappropriation of funds, but this is talking about a general idea of, again, betrayal. I really like Robert Alter's translation here, where he says betrayal, right? Should a person offend and betray the Lord's trust and dissemble with his fellow about a deposit or pledge, or by theft, etc., etc. Okay, so that's a good translation. All right, let's go back to Leviticus 6. Got to unravel here. Okay. I think we're actually going to skip ahead for all of this, because I think this was actually supposed to be in last week's Parsha, but for some reason, the version I have here online has different numbering. So this is really, I believe, part of last week's Parsha. So I think we're going to start down here with the burnt offering, but I'm going to end the study pretty soon anyway, and then we'll pick it up in the afternoon study. Okay, so we're going to start here in verse 8. So, وَيِدَبَرْ يَهْوَهْ el Moshe lemor Tzav et Aharon. Oh, my battery's running out, so I'll stop in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Et banav lemor. I don't want to start plugging in the charger and all this kind of stuff right now. Zot Torat ha'olah. So now we're going back to the laws regarding the burnt offering, right? The olah is the fully burnt offering. Everything is burnt on the altar, except for the blood, which is spilled at the base of the altar. Okay. Hi olah al mokda. So this is the burnt offering on its, so mokda means the fire, basically. Okay, let's get a good translation here. So Robert Alter translates it as flame. And Everett Fox translates it as, this is the instruction for the offering up. That's what he calls an olah. So some call it the fully burnt offering, the burnt offering. Basically, the entire thing is thrown onto the altar. That is what goes up on the blazing hearth. So he translates moked as blazing hearth. Okay, a moked. Moked in modern Hebrew means like a how do you say it again in English? A moked is like a focus point or something like that. Okay. They also use it for like a hotline, like if you're going to call like the I don't know, let's say you want to find out about oranges, so you call the orange hotline, right? That's the moked. It's like a telephone line, but it's a place where it's basically a place where something is focused. Okay. Mimukad means to be focused in modern Hebrew. So, but the real meaning is the hearth, right? The hearth, or this fire that's on the. It's basically the place where everything is burnt on the altar. Okay, and let's see if we can get some more understanding of this word moked. Okay. Place of burning, only of altar hearth. Oh God, excuse me. So it only occurs once in the entire Tanakh, and it's right here. So the plate on the top of the altar on which the burnt offering was laid and consumed. Okay. Let's look at this for a second. A burning mass, moked. So here we have it in another number of places. Okay. So it does appear more than once. Moked. So here's ked. Yamai smotai kemoked ni haru. My days and my bones, kimoked, like a hearth, ni haru, have been scorched, burned. Okay, yagur lanu mokde olam. Let's look at this, Isaiah 33:14. So Isaiah 33:14. Pahatuba Zion Hataim, the sinners in Zion are afraid. Haza Ra'ada Hanifim, the trembling has gripped those who are flattering, the flatterers. Mi yagur lanu, who mi yagur lanu ish ochelet, who can dwell with a burning fire, with a consuming fire. Mi yagur lanu mukde olam, who can dwell with us, or how can we dwell, I guess, mukde olam, with an internal flame, I guess you could translate it as, with everlasting burnings, they translate it as here. Okay, so here's another translation. Who among us can live with the consuming fire? Who among us can live with continual burning? Right? So mukde olam is translated as continual burning. Once again, pachatu b'tzion hataim. Okay. Ahaza ada hanifim. So there's kind of two parallel. These two things are in parallel. Pachatu b'tzion hataim. Sinners in Zion are afraid. Ahazur da hanifim. Flatterers have been gripped with trembling. Mi yagur lanu, who among us? I guess that's a good translation. Who among us? So we translate down here. I like the translation. Mi yagur lanu esh ochelet ochela. Who among us can dwell among a consuming fire? Mi yagur lanu mokde olam. Who among us can dwell with an eternal flame? So mokde, or eternal flames. Here they translate as continual burning. Okay, so the Esh Ochelet is in parallel with the Mokde Olam, the eternal burnings. Okay, so again, we have evidence here that the Moked has to do with a burning fire, right? And we saw that also here. Let's look one more time. Psalm 102:3. So, Kikalu ba'ashan yamai, because my days ended like smoke, or finished like smoke. In other words, they went up in smoke, right? Wa smotai kimuked iniharu, and my bones, like, again, and this is supposed to be like a moked, okay, but here it's just ked niharu, my bones burned like a moked, like a burning fire, like a hearth. Okay, here, for my days are consumed like smoke, and my bones are burned as as a hearth, as in hearth. Okay, so we get a general idea or somewhat of an idea of what this word moked means. See if we can find anything else. We read that one. We read that one. Moked, one occurrence. Psalm 102:4. Isaiah 33:14 we read. Psalm 102:4 we read. 102:3, 102:4. The numberings are sometimes different. From Yakad, let's look at Yakad. So that apparently is the underlying root. Yakad, to be kindled or burned. Okay, so here we have in Leviticus. Oh, so we're going to see this a lot, right? Of course, in Leviticus 6. Okay, so that's the underlying root, yakad, to burn. And the BDB says, verb, be kindled, burned, burn. So we'll see this a lot more in Leviticus 6. So this is the moked, is the place where the burning takes place, right? It's the noun form. It's one of the noun forms of the underlying root yakad. Let's look at Deuteronomy 32:22. And my battery is just about dead, so we'll end it on this. So Deuteronomy 32:22. Ish katha b'api watikad ad sheol. Okay, so this is like the speech at the end of Deuteronomy, right? Ad sheol tachtit watuchal eretz wa yivula watilahet mosde harim. So because a fire kadha burnt or is kindled ba'pi in my nose, literally kadha ba'pi, but it's an idiom meaning, right, well, literally a fire is kindled in my nose, watikad ad sheol, and it shall burn down to the depths of hell. I guess you could translate that as, okay, tachtit, ad sheol tachtit, down to the depths of hell, even though there is no hell, right? Sheol is just basically the down in the dirt place where dead bodies go, but sometimes by by analogy, it kind of means, well, not really hell per se, but the place where souls rest after they die. Utochal eretz, and it shall burn and it shall consume the land. Wa yivula, and its produce. What tilahet mosde harim, and it shall burn up or set on fire the foundations of the mountains. Okay, so here we have watikad ad sheol tachtit, the fire that has been kindled in my nose shall burn down into the depths of the hell, So here we have tikat. Okay, so again, the underlying root is yakad. Why is this coming so slow? Yakad. And this is where we get moked from. Oh boy, sorry. So let's go back, and then I'm going to end the study here. We'll pick it up again this afternoon. Why is this so damn slow? So here we are, getting back to our original verse that we're trying to look more deeply into. Tzav et Aaron wa et banav. Command Aaron and his sons. Zot Torah Olah. These are the instructions regarding the Olah, the fully burnt offering. He Olah al Mokta. This is the fully burnt offering that is placed on the hearth, on the pyre, I guess you could say. Al Mizbeach, which is on the altar. Kol Halayla, all night long, ad boker, until the morning. Ish hamizbeach tukad bo, and and the fire of the altar tukad bo will be inflamed with it. In other words, will be lit with it. Okay, the fire tukad will be lit with it, or will be kindled with it. Okay, so there's a burnt offering. The burnt offering has to be going all night long. The fire is not allowed to go out. And with that, we'll pick it up this afternoon. Okay, so my battery is about to run out, and time is about to run out. So we're going to end it, and we'll have the afternoon study in about a little bit more than 2.5 hours. So I wish everybody in the meantime a Shabbat Shalom, and hope to see you all later. So Shabbat Shalom.